Welcome to another episode of the Thunderstock Show, collection of valuable brainstorms to enhance your life, liberty, and pursuit of property. Today's topic is pursuit of property. My special guest, Michael Kingston, is the founder and CEO of Seeda. Michael, you're calling in from across the globe at 6:30 a.m. How's your morning going so far? And I guess the 27th of November.
Hey Ross, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's very early here in Australia, but worth getting up early to be on your show. But yeah, everything's good. It's a beautiful sunny morning in Sydney, Australia.
How long have you been living out in Sydney, Australia?
I've been here since 2012, so going on 13 years. I'm Irish originally. I grew up in Cork in Ireland, so spent about 30 years there, and then decided I wanted to live overseas and experience what that could bring. So moved here with my then girlfriend 12 years ago, and now we're married with two children, living on a beach in Sydney, Australia.
So did you meet your wife while you were living in Ireland and then both of you just sort of decided, hey, how about we leave this I'm assuming cloudy, potentially rainy, might be full of wool sweaters environment and go towards the beach? That might have been an easy sell.
That was a pretty easy sell. Yeah, we had spent both of us, yeah, had spent 30 years living and working there. And yeah, we just wanted to experience something different. It didn't necessarily have to be a sunshine destination. We wanted other things, some maybe some cultural diversity. Just try living in a new place for a period of time. But yes, it wasn't a coincidence that we ended up in one of the cities with the best climate in the world.
I haven't been to Australia yet, although it's on the bucket list of places to go. Nor have I gone to Ireland yet, also on the bucket place of places to go. Um, when you moved to Australia, did people say, obviously you moved to another English speaking country. Was it different to understand an Aussie accent versus an Irish accent, or is it all, you know, pretty much the same?
It's not there are nuances, but I would say English is probably the least differentiated thing. It's more the cultural differences, even though they're English speaking countries and they're part of the Commonwealth. So we were Ireland being very close to the United Kingdom, Australia part of the Commonwealth. So there's a lot of similarities between the United Kingdom and Australia. Um, but the cultural nuances are going to be present anywhere in the same way that Ireland and the United States primarily speak English. There's going to be, culturally they're worlds apart. So just trying to navigate some of those cultural differences was the main thing.
So, what are some of your interests and hobbies outside of growing a worldwide tech company?
Um, Um, so I guess growing a global company takes up a lot of time in a lot of different time zones. So I don't have a lot of time outside of I guess um, two things really. Family. I've got two young kids, so that takes most of my time. And then I would say anytime I do I try to either go to the gym. So I'm just a standard kind of gym person that does a bit of strength training and cardio training. And I also love golf. I don't get to play golf very much anymore with my business and two young kids, but I'm a big golf fan as well. So I hope to get back to that eventually.
Well, in terms of hobbies and interest, I think that people don't state enough that I talk to that, parenting is takes priority over other things. I it's I don't want to call it a hobby being a family person, but I would call it a second full-time career.
Mm.
Much like you, I would say pretty similar interests and hobbies or time spent not working. I have one 2-year old so far, looking to get another, and I would say that if I didn't have a home gym and I didn't work from either at home or wasn't like close local, I wouldn't get the same amount of life satisfaction being able to dedicate to all aspects of fitness, family, and business. So it's cool that you share that similar philosophy.
Yeah.
So moving on towards business, I want to say when I look at your LinkedIn profile, you've got quite a resume. You started in, it looks like the tech industry-ish. And for those of you, a lot of my listeners are US based, but might not know, and I don't know as well as you, but Ireland is a bit of a tech hub globally.
Yeah.
So did you start out of university, out of school, just getting into tech as your first thing? And what made you like when you're growing up and developing, what kind of led you towards that first jump into your field?
Yeah, yes, Ireland has has kind of is punching above its weight in terms of tech. We're a very small country of less than 5 million people. In the 70s, Ireland made university education free for all its citizens. So I think that was a big kind of a move towards people moving into like progressive education. So me and my brothers and sisters all got to go to college or university for $0. My parents were able to send us there. And why did I choose tech? I think probably going back to when I was real, preteen. I was always into mathematics and physics. So I guess if you're into mathematics and physics as a 12-year-old in Ireland in the 80s or in the early 90s, your progression was pretty well set out that you were going to go to university and get a third level education. And then once you had that third level education, um, the pathway to into a tech company was very easy. It was pretty well laid out. Yeah, even back in the 90s, Ireland had a massive footprint of global tech companies, mostly of them from North America. So even in my hometown, which is a very small town of 300,000 people, Apple, it's their biggest headquarters outside of the United States. They have I think they currently hire 50,000 people in my hometown, which is only 300,000 population.
So one
So
out of
yeah,
six people that live in where you're from works with Apple.
well, the people travel from outside of my hometown to get there as well. But
Hmm.
they're definitely a really big employer in the local area.
So what was the career move like when you moved from Ireland to Australia? Presumably, that move also marked a career shift. Tell me a little bit about that because like me, it seems like you weren't always, an entrepreneur. Your first thing out of school wasn't your own business. You work for somebody else. So what was it like making the career jump and was it easy? What were some of the pros and cons?
Yeah, I got very lucky there. So I left Ireland when I had about 10 years of work experience. And at the time I was working in a global technology company, telecommunications company. So I actually used the adjacency of working in a big telecommunications company in Ireland to a big telecommunications company in Australia. So the jump, I made it really easy on myself to kind of move countries. But then the next role, when I got to Australia, it did actually open up my eyes to other opportunities being available. Where I live, Sydney, Australia, is it's a reasonably big city. The population, I think, is about 4 to 5 million. Um, so if you think about it, the city I live in now was the same as the population of the entire country that I grew up in. Um, but even though it's a city of 4 to 5 million, the tech industry back in 2012 was quite nascent. So I was able to kind of get involved in the tech industry locally in Sydney. And just it opened my eyes to the differences between the industry I was in, which was telecommunications, um, to the growing software industry that was popping up all over the world. If you think about it, this was 2012. The iPhone had come out a few years beforehand. Facebook and was getting really big. Mobile was getting really big, and as a result of that, software was getting really big. So within 2 years of moving to Australia, I had moved out of the telco industry and into the software industry. And I think that was, if you look, if you mentioned my resume on LinkedIn, if you look at my resume, I think the major turning point was when I moved, firstly moved from Ireland to Australia. Secondly, when I moved industry from telecommunications to an exploding software industry. So I do look back on that about 10 years ago as a major turning point in my career.
And for some people that aren't embedded in the industry, there's a major difference between telecommunications and software tech, right? People might just call it all IT, but it really isn't,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
apples to
from the
apples.
outside looking in, they may look similar, but yeah, telecommunications, I would say, is about providing the infrastructure so people can use their phone and their internet. Whereas software then is more around once people have their phone and the internet, how do we build software to put on top of that infrastructure to make people's lives easier? And that's obviously what's happened in the last 15 years. That the software has become proliferated all over the world.
Couldn't agree more. So you have this background in global tech and telecom. What made you go out and start your own thing? Well, whenever I talk to people that have started a business from their teen years and haven't really worked for anybody else, they're like, "Oh, I wish I would have started sooner." And I'm like, "You started when you were 13. Like, how could you have started sooner?" But for people like you and I who pretty much, dipped our foot into the pool first before jumping right in, I'm very glad that I had my career, company side. But I will tell you, my hardest move was going from first was going from being an employee to being self-employed or working with myself. And then I had business partners in my first business. And the second hardest move was working from, having business owners where I'd split the equity, had a slice of the pie, to being 100%, sole owner. So for you, what was that transition like, and how did you know it was the right time?
I would say, how did I know it was the right time? I would say it's like having children. There's never a good time. You, you just gotta do it. So I would draw the similarity between starting a family and starting a business as very similar. But for me, the background really it's in my blood, I guess. So my mom and dad ran a small dairy farm in the south of Ireland. So I grew up, me and my five brothers and sisters grew up on um, what is an average sized dairy farm in Ireland. So uh, when you're a dairy farm in Ireland in the 1980s, it's very like being an entrepreneur. So I grew up in the 80s and 90s with that experience of what it's like to run a mid-sized business, watching my mom and dad 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, working in the business, trying to put food on the table for a family of six kids. So yeah, when you grow up, when your formative years are seeing this, and all of the neighboring farms around us were all the same. It was like a community of business people or entrepreneurs. So despite having gotten this really good education in Ireland, I did electronic engineering. When you grow up in that environment, you're subconsciously just aware of what's going on and what you need to do to put food on the table, what you need to do to make money from a day to day, how you need to be really scrappy in running your small business, your farm, to ensure that as you're trying to bring in revenue, which revenue in a dairy farm in Ireland was predominantly dairy being milk, and also selling crops as well to make revenue, and then keeping your costs as low as you can, because every dollar or every pound or euro you spent back then meant that you had less money to put back into the business, or to buy, literally to buy food or gas for your family.
I just watched the most popular television show in the United States right now, I believe is the show Yellowstone. So
Oh yeah.
you pretty much grew up in an environment comparable to the basis of the show, which
Yeah.
is, hey, we're at the turn of the new century and farming is what our ancestors and forefathers have done. We learned a lot about business, but how do we come into this new digital age and take those skills? It's pretty neat. I come from Lancaster, Lebanon, Pennsylvania, which most notably is known for being the Amish capital of probably the world, but definitely the United States. And what people don't know, because I've been marketing for a lot of local businesses, is that they are some of the scrappiest entrepreneurs you'll ever meet. The average net worth of an Amish family is far exceeds that of pretty much every other demographic group,
Okay.
because they keep all their cash and they start working from a very young age. So I can definitely appreciate that upbringing. It reminds me, very similar of the area where I'm from. So my next question about Seeda is, you know, I love the analogy of likening it to having children, but with with most businesses and definitely with families, most of the time it takes two to tango. So when you started the business, who were some of the core, components or peoples or contractors or team members? Did you have any you are the founder, did you have any other co-founders or day one employees that really helped you get there? And if so, what was that process like collaboratively?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I was working in a so I think just to tell the story of my career, I got into consulting shortly after moving to Sydney, Australia. And at the time, data and analytics, or as it was known then, big data, was becoming really big. So I got really lucky and I managed to get a role as leading a consulting firm that specialized in data and analytics. So I spent some time learning how the best companies in the world were implementing really modern data practices or data systems. So the reason I didn't go straight into entrepreneurship is I didn't have an idea. So if you think about it, I spent about 15 years working in industry. I must have worked 15 different jobs in 15 years. And what I was really doing was exploring the IT and the tech industry for ideas or opportunities that would be the one idea that would lead to me starting a business. And in about 2020, I was working in a tech company that specialized in ad tech, advertising technology. And finally I came across this really big problem that I said, okay, I'm going to take the jump and I'm going to start up my own business. So that was in the middle of 2020, just at the start of COVID, if everyone remembers that. And really at the time, I jumped in by myself to do a lot of market research. I don't regard myself as a technical person. I do have an engineering background, but nowadays I regard myself as a kind of a generalist entrepreneur. So what I did is I jumped in and I did a lot of market research on this problem that I had found. And then over the course of the 4 years that Seed has been born, there's been various different collaborations. I've brought in various different technical people to help me think about how to solve the problem. And then once we've done some market research, to build a minimum viable product to bring it to market to test it. And yeah, honestly, I guess I've learned a lot about bringing a product to market over the last 4 years. I feel like I've made about 1,000 mistakes. And we've gone through, we're on this current version of the business is our fifth, if you believe it, it's our fifth version of the business. And it feels like we've had about six different websites trying to articulate what problem we're solving to our target audience. And yeah, it's been a long, winding journey over a 4 year period where I've worked with. It feels like between 50 and 100 people, and they've all in some way contributed to the journey of Seeda.
What a long and winding journey. You still got so much ahead of you. How many
Yeah.
people are currently involved in the company, and what's that company culture like?
Culture is I'm a massive believer in culture, and I've worked. You only realize the importance of culture when you work in a business that has a bad culture.
Mm,
So, as part of doing a lot of jobs, I unfortunately I had the benefit of working in really great companies, so I know what good looks like. And then I've worked for one or two businesses that they didn't really prioritize culture at all, and you could really see that. So I've learned from that, and what I try and instill in the culture of Seeda is a very flat corporate structure. So there's about 15 full-time people in the team. We're a global remote first business because we started in COVID when everyone had to be remote anyway. So we've just kept that flexibility option where everyone works from home or in a co-working space. And then the culture, I would describe it as very down to earth, very flat level in terms of structure. And then I think the core ways you build a good structure are number one, have a really clear company vision and articulate and communicate that every day. So I spend a lot of time as the founder thinking about where we're going, and then building a very clear plan about how we're going to get there, and then communicating that to everyone in the business. So absolutely no one in the business is unsure about number one, what we do as a business. Number two, how we help customers, no matter what your role is in the business, whether it's technical or customer facing. Everybody should know what the core problem we solve in the business is and how we help our customers. And then beyond communication, then it's really around working one-on-one with people to get down into the nuances of what makes everybody tick, and making sure we avoid complex language such as jargon. We work in the marketing industry, so jargon of all the industries I've worked in, marketing has to be the one that overuses buzzwords and jargon the most. So what I try and do is avoid using buzzwords and jargon and just speak plainly and directly to both our customers and our team members, to make sure we all, like I said, we all know what's going on. We all know where the business is going and how each person is contributing to driving the business forward. Yeah, so that's really how we run the business here from a cultural perspective.
I think it's incredibly important to have models for what not only what good looks like, but for what bad looks like. When you're looking for your ideal client and you're trying to find, who is your most ideal client, I think a lot of marketers try to overcomplicate using these three-letter acronyms, your ICP or your GTM, your go to market, which some people may or may not know that's acronym. But when you first got started out, you've got a bunch of case studies now. Seeda's been around; it's had different iterations. But do you remember your first client success and like what made them successful? Like what was it about that client in particular, that story, that you're like, when I started as a marketer, there's clients that I thought no matter how good of a job I do, we're never going to get the result. These clients will never be happy. And then there's clients where I thought, wow, this feels easy. They're successful and they're happy, like the dream client. So can you paint for me the picture what it was like when you're finding that ideal client, and what was that feeling like?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so when you start out a business, most folks who start are firstly what trying to define what the problem is. And when you start without having any like real world experience of actually speaking to customers, a lot of it's in your head or on a whiteboard. And then when you go into the real world and try and go down a few levels on the problem that you think you've discovered, um it could be really tricky, right? So my recommendation is always don't spend too much time in your head or on a whiteboard. Get out into the real world. And I think, yeah, like a lot of founders, I probably have a lot of regrets that I tried to design the best theoretical solution to the problem that I thought existed before actually going out there and getting a client. So I think, yeah, I spun my wheels a bit at the start, if I'm honest. In my head, theoretically solving for a problem. Whereas I think the first time when I really came across the problem was about a year into the business, where we worked with a business in Melbourne, Australia, that was an online retailer on Shopify, quite a big online retailer. And when I started working with that business, they had been looking for a solution for a couple of years that finally was able to pull all of their data. They used about 20 different business applications to run their business, everything from digital marketing platforms such as Facebook, Google, and Bing. They used email marketing platforms. They had a CRM. They had an order management system. They had a financial system. They had various different systems, and this was in 2021. But they hadn't been able to, despite being pretty tech savvy, they hadn't been able to find a way to pull all of their systems together and join them together so they were speaking to each other, and then finally seeing what marketing activities were actually contributing to their business and what marketing activities were not contributing to their business. So there was a massive aha moment for me there in 2021 where I found this really complex business, and in my head I thought that the problem was going to be, let's say, a severity of 4 out of 10. When in reality, once I got into the detail, the severity of this problem was a 10 out of 10, because it was literally the business owner was flying blind, making decisions literally with their eyes closed because they weren't able to get a clear picture of what was going on in their business. And that was yeah, about 3 years ago, and it was a massive turning point for me, because that's when I went from being moderately deep in the solution to going very deep into what is the core business offering of Seeda today.
So then let me ask you the flip side of that question. You learn from the green lights and the red lights. Was there an experience with working with a client that you thought, hey, we can knock it out of the park for these guys, provide tons of value, it's going to be great, everyone's going to be happy? Where you started working with the client and you're like, this is a nightmare. We would have been better off if we didn't even like sign on with you. Did you have any of those the other way that taught you something?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, uh, a similar experience. I had it was a US based company, and sometimes when you read sales books, they talk about qualifying and disqualifying customers. So as part of the journey of building a software company, you really do need to figure out what your ideal customer looks like, and not at a high level, like, oh, they need to be doing $5 million worth of business and have a team of 3 people and work in this industry. And I've gone to the point now where I've gone so deep on defining what our customers look like. We can now avoid working with clients who, firstly, we're not a good fit for them, and secondly, they're not a good fit for us. So we were working with this company in North America, in the US, and their business was about 3 years old. They had grown rapidly, and they had so much going on. They were just so busy that it was never going to work out. So
Mm.
if I had my time again during the first 2 meetings where we were discovering what the problem was, fast forward to today, I would have my ideal customer so well defined. Back then, I would have automatically said, "Look, to be honest with you, thank you for your time, but we're not a good fit for your business right now for these reasons." And I think again, it's part of learning about what the market needs, what your business does, being really clear on what that is, and then having the courage to say no, because when you're starting in a business, you want revenue. You want as many customers as you can get. You need to turn on revenue, otherwise you're going to fail as a business. But yeah, look, we did, by not saying no at that point of time, we probably cost ourselves 3 to 6 months of time helping other customers who were more suitable to the product we were trying to build at the time.
It's so much easier to look back in hindsight and look at opportunity cost as a metric than when you're in the beginning stages. And I remember working with businesses that were startups that, they are just, and I've been guilty of this as well. It's like, hey, if I don't help whoever needs help that wants my help and I make the sale, then I will starve. This would be awful. But I learned from a business coach recently that most businesses die of indigestion than they do of starvation. So
Yes, yes. That's a good way to think about it.
So I want to bring it back to the big picture of Seeda. You've helped a lot of people. You've grown quite a bit. You're global. You said to me offline that you have a global presence, and I said, "Oh, is most of your business in North America?" And you're like, "Not most of it." So you're all around the world. It's almost in equal parts of the Pacific area where you're at, North America, and you said Europe as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so our business, we think about it in three different regions. Firstly, we've got two headquarters. So Cork, Ireland, which is the place I was talking about where Apple is based in Europe. So one of our headquarters is there. So from that region, we serve the UK and Ireland region predominantly. Then I live in Sydney, Australia, and there's a few other team members here. So from Sydney, Australia, it's a really good location to service the Asia Pacific region, which includes Singapore and New Zealand and countries like that. And then North America is obviously a market you can't ignore. So we're just beginning to expand into the US and Canada at the moment as well. So I would say our business is separated equally across those three regions, Asia Pacific, North America, and the UK and Ireland.
So where do you see Seeda in 10 years from now? It's quarter four, 2034. If you were at this place, what would you can look back and say, all right, we've hit our 10-year goal. What does that goal look like?
Yeah, so our 10-year goal, I don't think that far in advance, but just extrapolating, let's say my 5-year goal, we've got 1,000 happy customers. We've got a small and very nimble team of less than 100 people. Our annual contract value for each of those happy customers is somewhere between 50,000 to $100,000. And yeah, we've grown to become the trusted partner of chief marketing officers from a marketing measurement perspective. So we've just to explain what Seeda does, we're a marketing mix modeling company. So what that means is marketers for the last 30 years have used attribution and user level tracking to make a lot of the decisions around where they spend their time and their money. In the last few years, due to privacy laws and privacy technologies, a lot of that attribution has become inaccurate. So marketers need a better way to understand how to figure out what's contributing to their revenue. So Seeda specializes in marketing mix modeling, which is a holistic approach to giving to helping marketers solve that problem. So yeah, in 10 years' time, I would like to be within businesses a well-known established brand where you can trust to give you a real and accurate view as to what's contributing to your business results, and then from a predictive perspective also helping marketers predict where to spend their money the best to get the maximum return.
Just like the dairy farmers back in Cork, you want to make sure that every dollar that goes out goes towards helping your business and can help put food on the table for the next day versus just blindly, balling out with your money and the crop might not be there the next season if you do it that way. So you're
If
kind of
you
helping,
invest poorly, yes.
yeah, so you're helping digital uh people that do marketing to, and I would say as a marketer and who's worked with finance professionals, marketers are known for overspending and they need the help with analytics and data to reel it back in and make some data driven decisions.
Yes. And eliminate the waste is a very important part of the story as well.
So I want to ask you my final question, my favorite question, which is if you could have a conversation with your 80-year-old self and your 8-year-old self in the same room, how will that conversation go? And what would you tell your 8-year-old self? And what would you tell your 80-year-old self?
Oh, a very, very good question, and it really got me thinking. I I think I would tell my 80-year-old self, um, leave university in the third year of a 4 year program and go and work at a startup immediately. Um, and then continue working in startups for the rest of your life, would be my advice to my 80-year-old self. I would also advise myself to have kids earlier.
Mm.
I had kids when my daughter, I had kids in my late 30s. I would advise my 80-year-old self to start a family in my early 30s if I could wind back the clock, so potentially 8 to 10 years earlier than I did. That's yeah, there are two pieces of advice to my 80-year-old self. And to my 8-year-old self, I would, this is a harder one. Um, I I would say to my 8-year-old self, I would say, ooh, sorry, let me think about this.
It's always easier talking to someone with a hindsight perspective. But you have young
Yeah,
kids.
yeah,
You have young kids, so that might help your that frame that question.
yeah. A good idea. I have a 6-year-old daughter. So to my 8-year-old self, I would say, ooh, sorry, give me a second. This is a
No
tough one.
worries.
Sorry, Ross. So I would say to my 8-year-old self, similar from a business perspective. Yeah, just be curious, continue to be curious, which I always was, and don't wait too long to, if you've got an idea, don't don't let fear of failure slow you down in doing something about that idea. And yeah, just jump in head first whenever you have an idea, figure out if you like it or not. And if you don't like it, life is short. You can always change your mind, and if something's not working out, there's a lot of opportunity in the world, so you can just change course correct very quickly. And I would just say, yeah, keep trying new things until you find the thing that works best for you, so that you can always iterate towards a better direction for your life.
It was worth the wait. That was an excellent answer. True tech entrepreneur, right? Course correct, and you'll figure it out. Just keep trying. Love that. So, Michael, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, getting to know you better, getting to know Seeda, more, and everyone listening. I want to give you the opportunity to let them know how they get in touch with you.
Well, thanks, Ross. It's been a pleasure to be on. Yeah, just I use LinkedIn predominantly, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Michael Kingston Seeda, Seeda, and also on my website, Seeda.io, Seeda.io. And yeah, feel free to reach out, and we're very responsive here. We're a small, very responsive team, and if you've got a problem with um, understanding how your marketing is working for your business today, then reach out and we'd be happy to help.
Thanks for coming on. Everyone listening, this has been another episode of the Thunderstock Show. I hope that this valuable brainstorm enhanced your life. And if you're thinking about starting a business, you listen to the show and it gives you that extra oomph to get over the line. And if you're running a business, I hope this gives you some inspiration and some clarity. For those of you that like the episode, please do me a favor. It would mean the world to me. Share it with a friend. I don't run ads on the show intentionally. The only way it grows is through word of mouth. So until next time, everyone, this is Ross Stockdale with the Thunderstock Show. Out.